So we're back with the football content today, and I'm going to be talking 49ers, one of my most favorite things to do. And we've got the five potential roadblocks for the 49ers in 2021 today. The 49ers have been one of the more hyped up teams in the course of the offseason because they've brought everyone back at full strength and have almost the exact same team as their 2019 roster, if not better, with additions of Trent Williams, Alex Mack, and other players who've been helping them throughout. In addition, players like Fred Warner have progressed and become better players, so they sometimes might even have a better roster than 2019, albeit a little different. But with that hype, there are also some concerns for the 49ers, and I'm just going to outlay the top five concerns to you guys, apart from injuries. Injuries is the most obvious one. I didn't want to touch on that because that's like inevitable in a way, and that injuries are going to happen. But instead, I'll talk to you guys about five different things. The number one roadblock that I have for the team this year, it's one of the more underrated ones that people don't think of, and it came out in May, and that's travel. The 49ers are traveling 28,000 miles, more than 28 actually, which is the most in the NFL over the course of the 2021 season. And teams like Jacksonville and other teams are actually making a trip to London, which includes more miles on their total mile list, yet the 49ers rank higher than every other team, including division rivals, Rams and the Seattle Seahawks, who are in the top five as well. But that's a huge problem, especially with the extended season, because that means more wear and tear on bodies. 14 of the 17 weeks that the 49ers are actually playing a game includes a travel week, meaning that they're not at home for many stretches. I think the longest home stretch they have is 2 weeks, and they're constantly either traveling back home from the road or to the road from home or to the road from the road. So it's not like they have many breaks, which is a huge problem, especially with the injury questions and with the wear and tear that happens on player bodies over the course of the season. This could alter the practice schedule to rest bodies, but the problem with that is the less experience and the less type of kind of in-game or not in-game, but out-of-game action could mean that the players are more susceptible to injury, as I said. But also, it removes like required reps that players need in order to improve. So that's one of the more key aspects. And an even more important statistic is net miles, which takes into factor the amount that other teams travel to your own arena. And the 49ers even rank first in that, meaning that taking away all the miles that opponents travel to your arena, you still travel the most. And this one is not even close. It's by a significant margin to the Atlanta Falcons, who are second. The 49ers are traveling a lot this season, which is a huge problem. Factor in all the injuries and all, and then look at the most important, or maybe not the most important, but one of the crucial games down the stretch is Week 16 at Tennessee. The 49ers in Week 15 are at home, but in Week 16, they travel to Tennessee on a short week to play in Thursday Night Football, which at that part of the season is one of the more tiring parts of the season. They're going to play in Tennessee at Thursday Night Football against that juggernaut of an offense. That is going to be one of the key games to watch, especially with the travel concerns that already are happening throughout the season. Number two on my potential roadblocks for the 49ers is cornerback depth. Now, there are six cornerbacks that are currently on the roster. I'm not going to count Devontae Harris, who is originally on the 53 man, but taken to IR, which brought back Dante Johnson. But we've got K'Wan Williams, Jason Verrett, Emmanuel Mosley, then the two rookies in Ambry Thomas and Diamador Lenore, and the 49er that gets cut and brought back like every single season, Dante Johnson. But looking at that group, you see the three starters. They're the veterans, right? And Verrett, well, Mosley's not that much of a veteran, but he's been in the league for a little bit now. Verrett, Mosley, and K'Wan Williams, who's 30 years old. Verrett has only played in 13 or more games in two of his 6 seasons, and in the rest, it's been six or less. It's been that little that Jason Verrett has been on the field consistently. And the last time before last season that he played was, I think, in his second year in the league in 2014 or 2015. Not exactly sure on the year. But Verrett has not been that consistent in terms of staying healthy. And he really needs to stay healthy because apart from the top three in Verrett, Mosley, and Williams, there are two rookies and then a veteran who really doesn't provide that high of a ceiling, which is a steep drop off from a player who was a perennial Pro Bowl player last year. He was almost at that Pro Bowl caliber. He didn't get voted in, but he was playing at that type of level last year. So Verrett is a huge part of this 49er team this year, and I was tempted to put just him, but the situation kind of stems further than him. Emmanuel Mosley is a first time starter this year, and K'Wan Williams only played 8 games last year, and he's getting older and older, right? He's now into his age 31 season, I believe, after an 8 game season last year. And while K'Wan Williams has been pretty consistent with health, that also might stem as a problem. Now, you might say, oh, wow, look at Diamador Lenore, who just absolutely killed in the preseason. Well, the preseason atmosphere is different. And while you love that your fifth round rookie is stepping up to the challenge, you're not facing the top receivers on every team. And D'Amico Ryans, the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, has continuously stressed this attack of where the defensive line is going to pressure and pressure and pressure. Now, that sounds like a great approach, and it's looked great in the preseason. But the problem is when you have your front seven pressuring as much rather than staying in coverage, it puts that much more liability on the corners to cover. So if you have an injury to any of those top three guys, you're going to have an unexperienced player or a player without a high ceiling, an all right player in Dante Johnson on the field. And that's going to be a little bit problematic, especially in short game situations. Because with that pressure, a lot of teams are going to change up their schemes for the 49ers to try and aim to vertically push the ball, but push the ball in a way that they don't take sacks. So that is one problem to look out for. And Ambry Thomas, the other player who I hadn't mentioned, he has been a little bit of a struggle in preseason, and I know a lot of people are shouting at his name, but rookies take time to develop. But the problem is he might not get that time if he's just thrust in there because of injuries. So that's one thing to take a look at. Moving on to my third reason or potential roadblock for the 49ers in 2021, we've got one specific player, defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw. Now, I know I'm not trying to be too pessimistic here with Kinlaw. He's a second-year player, came off his first year last year, but he was traded for DeForest Buckner, the defensive tackle who now plays for the Colts, who absolutely killed it last year after getting a 4-year, $84 million extension. And you know that DeForest Buckner, he was going to get a deal from the 49ers, but he was a little more expensive. They went with Arik Armstead instead. Is that the best idea? We'll discuss that later. But Javon Kinlaw did not have like an off season to work in last year because of COVID, and he struggled a bit last year, especially with the trying to adapt to the NFL. It looked like he was a little bit slower, and he wasn't as prepared. But with an off season this year, let's see if he can really develop and become a better player. But the problem is, Javon Kinlaw has not shown that pass rushing ability that is really key in this 49ers defense. And while, like, you've heard so much about the 49er depth at that defensive, along the defensive line, most of that depth is the edge. You have players like Zach Kerr, Arden Key, and players like those, and Jordan Willis. So many players like those who can make an impact on the edge, but there are not as many of those on the defensive on the interior side of the ball. You've got DJ Jones, who's the second starter alongside Javon Kinlaw, but both of those guys are mainly run-stopping players. You want Javon Kinlaw to show that pass rushing ability, and in camp, they've been a little limited in giving him those opportunities. So it's not really that clear as to whether Javon Kinlaw really has that ability yet, or is he still progressing? Because that's going to be a key part, especially in this attacking defense for the 49ers. If you look at the depth behind Javon Kinlaw, you've got guys like Maurice Hurst, but he's currently on IR. But as he was a pleasant surprise, but him being on IR, that's a little different now. Then you got guys like Kentavious Street and Kevin Givens, like unproven commodities. Basically, Givens was like on the practice squad, and Street got in some plays last year, but he hasn't really been thrust into a bigger role yet. So Javon Kinlaw is certainly a guy the 49ers are definitely going to be looking at to try and uplift, that interior defensive line if they don't move Arik Armstead in, which I'm sure they want to do. Moving on to my fourth potential roadblock, it's probably the most obvious apart from injuries, the division. The 49ers are going to play 6 games against Seattle Seahawks, Arizona Cardinals, and Los Angeles Rams. 3 playoff caliber type of teams. And while you might not consider Arizona just because they're the division that they play in, all 4 teams possess a threat every single week. The problem also stems within that travel and within the schedule because in week 3, 4, and 5, when the 49ers are finally getting some real action in terms of difficulty after facing Detroit and Philadelphia in the first 2 weeks. Don't get me wrong, like they could obviously lose some two of those games, but like they're favored in both those. But in week 3, 4, and 5, they faced Green Bay, Seattle, and Arizona, with the third game, Arizona, being at Arizona. So that's like a strong stretch where they really have to perform and where confidence might play a huge factor because if the confidence or the morale goes down after that first loss, then it might hurt, right? But that's like one of those 3 game stretches. And then later on in the season, in week 9 and week 10, they face Arizona and Los Angeles back to back. The key part of the division is the winner, obviously, of the division is going to have to beat some of these teams at over 50% of the time, probably close to 5 or 6 wins against the division. And that's crazy against this type of top tier talent. But the 49ers, if they want to get a top seed and not have to play outside of Levi's during their first week, they probably have to get that win, or they have to win the division basically. Because if you're the 5th seed, you don't play at home. If you're the 6th seed, you don't play at home. And if you're the 7th seed, you don't play at home. Especially with so much talent in the division, there's even a chance that they don't make it. Although I find that unlikely, there is a chance. So these division games really, really matter, and the stretches that they play them in are a little tough. So that could be a potential roadblock for the 49ers. Coming in at number 5, I have special teams. Now, special teams is one of those underrated reasons, but I saw something really cool today by David Lombardi, and it really highlighted why special teams has been a problem, especially last year. And right now, the 49ers don't have a solidified punt or kick returner because Encebo Webster was claimed by the Chicago Bears. Travis Benjamin, their other kicker punt returner guy, he is now on the practice squad, I believe. So he isn't on the 53-man roster because they only wanted to carry 6 wideouts. So you have 6 wideouts. I know they've been they say that Brandon Ayuk could be a punt returner and that Elijah Mitchell probably can return kicks. But right now you don't have that solidified guy and nothing's clear on the depth chart. So there's a little bit of uncertainty there. But looking at statistics, right? Robbie Gould, their kicker, has been inconsistent over the past 2 years after a phenomenal season in 2018, where he kicked over 97%, I believe, of his kicks as field goals. In 2019, he was only a 74% accuracy, and last year in 2020, he only had an 82% accuracy. So you see that Robbie Gould, he's getting older, right? And you don't know if that plays a factor or not, but history shows that it has. Is Robbie Gould going to have a bounce back season this year? Is he going to get back to where he previously was in the early stages of his San Francisco career and in Chicago? Let's hope so. But at the moment, that's a problem. And looking at other statistics, last year the 49ers were 30th in expected points added by special teams. And they had negative 52.3, which means that they were 52.3 worse. They lost 52.3 points just because of special teams, which was 30th in the league. In addition, they were worst on kick returns and second worst on punt returns by losing or with negative 20.4 added. And that means that, you see these like statistics and a lot of people think, "Oh, special teams does not matter." Well, that's clearly true or clearly not true. First of all, the Elijah Mitchell kick in the Vegas game, that was huge. Why? Because they get better field position. When you get better field position, it's obvious that you have less to go. When you have less yards to go, it's more easy to try and get points out of that drive, which is why a lot of these things are, a lot of these little factors are actually huge factors for the 49ers, especially because this is one of the sides that they've been lacking because the defense has been pretty stout. The offense obviously faced injuries, but in a team or in a group that didn't face injuries last year, this was a problem. So the 49ers, like, they have to fix something up from last year, be it changing up their game plan, be it changing up who returns stuff and who's on that kind of special teams unit. But they've got to change something because that wasn't clear. That wasn't clearly working last year, and that's a problem right now. So those are my top 5 reasons as to why the 49ers might face roadblocks in the 2021 season. Let me know yours in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.